Welcome to GHI's Mental Health Conference. I want to start by acknowledging the historic moment in which this conference is taking place. The events of October 7th have left an indelible mark on our nation. The world has changed. The last 8 months have been mired with grief, sadness, and fear, alongside resilience, hope, and healing.
A convergence of mental health professionals and renowned international speakers on topics of trauma and advancements in emerging therapies in the shadow of October 7th.
What is the future of the mental health of our nation that we as clinicians now need to brace ourselves for and prepare ourselves for, and how are we going to tackle something that none of us have ever had to deal with in our generation?
We are here in these very, very challenging times, and I would like to address these issues that we are facing, mostly regarding post-traumatic stress disorder.
Keynote speaker Dr. Mouli Lahad is a pioneer in Israel in dealing with trauma for nearly 50 years. He says the events of October 7th and the subsequent war against Hamas has created an unprecedented level of trauma.
We have some trouble with using the term post-traumatic stress disorder because it's not post, so I rather call it prolonged traumatic stress disorder. Instead, we're looking at it as what we call grief response. We have lost, I would say, confidence in the government, in the army, in our belief system that we will be there and never again. And I think this, beyond everything, has caused a lot of suffering here.
The situation is only made worse by the anti-Israel and anti-Semitic vitriol spreading like wildfire around the world, triggering an inescapable trauma with a multi-generational epigenetic component.
I would say the Jewish people somewhere, I would say, have what I call cell memory of the trauma. I think this accusation, this denial, this rejection is making it very difficult for people to move on, because they have to hang on to the memory even more so than if people would have allowed them to process it.
All of us have been born into a pre-traumatized world, and we are often not aware of that fact. And that's why I think seeing trauma as individual, ancestral, and collective is really important.
Also a keynote speaker, Thomas Hubel, who is well known around the world for developing the collective trauma integration process, also known as attunement.
History is us. You know, integrated history, integrated life is living through us. We learned what many, many generations before us learned. It lives through us. But unintegrated history, the history that was traumatizing, is the past, and that past keeps repeating itself.
The good news is that all the experts believe there is a path toward healing through a collective sense of community, as well as more access to mental health professionals and new treatments.
Olim come and there's a language barrier, and they don't have their usual resources that they're familiar with. So there's so much that Olim fall through the cracks. And that's part of what Get Help Israel does, is we bridge the gap in mental health care for English speakers.
Similarly, we heard from the executive director of MAPS Israel discussing the advancements in psychedelic therapies in treating severe cases of PTSD, with hopes of getting FDA approval soon.
We have the small research sample that we've worked with, but the promise of a new treatment that can approach things in a different way and offer a different path towards healing is extremely hopeful for a lot of us.
Overall, everyone who spoke is confident and hopeful about a brighter future because of the strength and resilience of the Jewish people for thousands of years.
Community support services were invented, so to speak, by Jewish communities around the world for generations. So I think it's part of the mentality or the makeup of our concept of what helps people to recover. We can't change the past. We can process it, we can help people to live with it, but altogether we have to look to the future, and that's where hope comes into.
In Tel Aviv, Emily Francis, I-24 News.